Welcome to EdPrime, your Smart School Partners digital event. We make a conscious endeavor to enlighten teachers, parents, and students about the latest trends in employability of young people in a post-pandemic scenario. We have to make informed choices, and this is a step in that direction. We have all heard of entrepreneurs or people associated with business. But what are STEM-preneurs? Firstly, what is STEM? Let's have a quick look. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, all the magical words that we love in our country. The technology revolution that the world has undergone since the mid-20th century has been phenomenal, and speaking strictly in terms of school, the study table has been replaced with a tab, making education boundless and accessible 24/7. Our aim is to enlighten schools and parents about how EdTech, or the merging of technology in the field of education, is now a necessity, not a luxury or sci-fi fantasy. In fact, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics has made a prediction that by 2029, STEM-related occupations will have center stage. So are we preparing our students for a STEM-centric future? It is EdPrime's honor to introduce to you our guest today, a veteran with 34 years of service to the nation in the elite mechanized infantry, who wears many hats and continues to serve India in a more evolved role as EdTech missionary. Colonel Solomon, this is also personally a wonderful opportunity to interact with somebody from the forces fraternity. I request you, sir, to please turn on your camera. Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hear
Yes,
you.
welcome. Welcome. Such an honor to have you with us this morning. And thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Always such a pleasure meeting somebody from the Army fraternity. And we're so honored that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
talking strictly about the way things have been post-pandemic, it's literally been a situation where we've thrown the baby into the water, and as a result, schools, especially in India, were literally forced on board with online teaching. And now that schools have begun and in offline mode and students are face-to-face with teachers, there is a great sense of relief in India that finally this has come to an end and we're doing offline teaching. But this also means that we still haven't realized the amazing potential of how important hybrid learning is. Is this a fair assessment?
Right. We need to see this in entirety, that the pandemic hit us very badly and we were caught off guard. And it was a difficult situation where the networks, the students, the teachers, everybody was trying to link up and carry on. Having said that, there were a certain amount of problems which cropped up when online classes were on. And when normalcy returned, the schools with the gusto took back what they had lost. But I feel that the future is in hybrid education, wherein certain amount of curriculum and a certain amount of workload can be shifted to an online mode. This would definitely give space for the teachers and the students to interact better when there is a need. Now, I'm linking this question to your next, the course of this talk, where K-12 and STEM are going to be dwelt on. So when we talk about K-12 and STEM, we will know as to why hybrid is necessary. and why that is the new system which is going to be the mainstay.
Right. In fact, what you've made is a very valid point, Colonel, that we have sort of brushed everything away and decided to go back into our comfort zone, whereas hybrid learning, like you stressed, is actually the way forward. Sir, I would also like to, understand that you being a speaker for the All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE, have been very closely associated with the EdTech environment in India. What are some of the areas that we really need to take seriously when it comes to schooling and curriculum, especially with focus on education and technology?
Right. When I go and speak in colleges which are finishing students to get into the workplace, I see there is a mismatch between the skill sets they have due to regular education, their practical classes, and what they're going to do in the corporate fields. So the first point I would like to bring about here are the areas which need to be stressed on are the skill gaps. The skill gaps, again, we will come back to the theme of this talk being K-12 and STEM. But the skill gaps besides those are something which is abstract, where communication, behavioral sciences, like earlier we used to have model sciences, and activities in school which used to foster bonhomie, teamwork, debate, all these slowly, due to the race to get more marks, have been brushed aside. Now, these have led to a mismatch when the child applies. I wouldn't say a child, a young adult in engineering colleges applies theory to practice and then goes out into the corporate field. And there, in the interview or during his job, he's told that possibly you don't have the skill sets which we need for the job, which he could have very well acquired in his process, in the process of education, right from the time he was in school. So stressing on points for immediate address when I speak to people is responsible living, wherein if you are a student, you need to start seeking information, because information is not going to come to you on a platter. You need to skill yourself. You need to equip yourself with certain amount of knowledge, certain amount of application. Then you need to help your fellow student. So I keep citing examples like previous president APJ Abdul Kalam, then our prime minister. I said nothing can stop a poor boy or a girl or anybody from reaching the zenith. So don't look down on your fellow students. Learn from each other. Foster a spirit of learning, and don't get into cliches and politics and who's come from an upper background, who speaks better English, who can wear better clothes, who's got more money. All these don't matter. So these are the stress points I talk about when I go to these colleges, because the students come from a very large bandwidth, and integrating them and telling them that how to be responsible students is one of my stress points there. Besides that, I also tell them to engage with societal work, like cleaning up their colleges, their dormitories, their hostels, the places where they stay and study, because only then would these small islands of excellence at some point in time merge into bigger islands and possibly become, the new norm of how we conduct ourselves in the society at large. So this in very brief is what I do when I speak in AICTE. I speak on a lot of other allied subjects like patriotism, what it means to young people, then harnessing the intoxication of youth, then living responsibly in a society, then enhancing productivity in your workplace, how to study more, and lots of topics I talk on. Would
Right.
that
Thank you.
answer your
Yes.
question?
Yes, yes. In fact, you made an extremely very sensitive yet valid point about how mindfulness and empathy actually drive every other kind of education that we have in life. So perhaps the first gap that we witness is in terms of where you talked about teamwork, or you talked about something as small as, like that American general speech, which is shared very often, that if you wish to be successful in life, start by making your bed in the morning. And perhaps if we are mindful about our surroundings, about being one with the environment, all of our knowledge can then be paced out comfortably, and perhaps exploitation of the environment and each other would then become a little less. Um, what is, the government of India, of course, has been very aggressive when it comes to pushing digital education, and the pandemic helped that mission of the government. But also, how are we looking at, the next 2 decades of ensuring that India's students have that kind of edge over the world students in terms of getting jobs related to STEM? Because our knowledge, like you said in your previous answer to my question, the knowledge gaps are so many. How are we going to get there?
All right. So the first thing is that we are a billion plus people. And in spite of the knowledge gaps, you and me talking to each other on a subject like this proves that individual effort is what's required. So addressing the question of how are we going to achieve our targets is that the government of India has already promoted K-12 and STEM education in schools to be carried forward into colleges. Now, why STEM and why K-12? In some form or the other, from the time Thomas Alva Edison made the bulb, the Wright brothers took to the sky, we've all been involved in integrating science, technology, engineering, and maths at various levels. We just didn't have a name for it. So by the time World War II happened, since I'm a soldier, I'll give you a few examples. We had the atomic bomb changed the landscape of how wars are fought. Then we had synthetic rubber, which came in. Now, when we look at these examples, we see that the scientists were working in collaboration with the soldiers, in collaboration with the manufacturers. At some point in time, integration was happening, but that was in a hurried way. Now we go to, say, possibly post-World War II, the era of 1957, when Sputnik was launched by the USSR. That's when, awareness hit the ceiling. USA was caught off guard, and they realized that the Russians have put a beach ball into space, and it is in 1.5 hours it's going around the earth. And if they put a camera there, then their goose is cooked. So that is the time, for the first time, the Americans started talking about STEM education, but they had SETM, not STEM. So, and evolved it into STEM. And they systematically went about promoting this, wherein they very clearly laid out that unless we integrate this education into our school, we will not be able to throw up people of excellence. Now, let's come back to India. India, by sheer volume, irrespective of whether you come from a very elite background or whether you're a poor man, like I just mentioned in my previous answer to you, the sheer volume of kids we have, we will have kids who go up and achieve very, very high milestones, targets, positions for themselves. But as a country, as a whole, we need to look at K-12 and STEM in a different light. So when we look at this in a different light, we need to see first the student, then the educator, and then the environment. Because if you see only one in isolation, we will not be able to achieve our targets in the next 2 decades. So what is a student? A student starts from kindergarten and goes through the K-12 with his teachers. Now the K-12, when you are talking about teachers, there are a lot of things which get aggravated. Let's talk about the army. Every 2 years, children of armed forces personnel change their schools, the environment, everything changes. They go to big and small schools, they study in all sorts of spaces. It's very difficult to ensure K-12 in continuity in one school for them. Now let's take a more stable model. Let's say in a place where you guys are in Jaipur or Jodhpur, you've got a school, you send your child from kindergarten to class 12 into the same school. She has the same, possibly same set of classmates. That's a different environment. So for STEM education, there are 4 big blocks which have been made. That is kindergarten to class 4, 6 to 7, 8 to 10, and 10 to 12. Now, when we look at this process, which now we come to call as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, as a child progresses in these blocks, in these 4 blocks of education, let's take, now we come to the second vertical, the teacher. The STEM educator is not a science teacher alone. The STEM educator needs to know how technology, how maths, and how engineering are going to integrate into teaching science, that is pure science, physics and chemistry, at a level of that child. It may not be very obvious for the first 2 sessions of the first 2 blocks of kindergarten to 4 and 6 and 7. But from the time they're in 8th to 12th, that is the time you're building them, where they know that pure sciences are physics and chemistry, where they are applied to make bridges and to make physical articles, and so many, and so on and so forth. And lots of educators, not because of their fault, but because of the lack of exposure when they were students, mistake technology to be a part of engineering. Whereas I have actually made a little point for it. Technology is the creation and use of technical means and interrelation with life, with society, and with the environment, drawing from engineering, applied science, and pure science. It's not only engineering. So technology has become a bigger umbrella where it is, touching upon applied science and pure sciences as well. Whereas engineering, in its purest form, is the art and science of practical application of knowledge. From pure sciences like physics and chemistry, like we just spoke about, as in the construction of bridges, buildings, you make mines, you make ships, you make aircraft, you make chemical plants. So, there is a difference between how we need to see this. So when the educator understands, that is teaching the teacher is as important, because as you upskill, as these requirements keep changing of education, it's absolutely necessary for the educator also to be up to speed. Now let's come to the third point, that is environment. Very fine, we have talks like this, and I go to big colleges and universities and tell them, do this, do that. But do we have an environment? Do we have the labs? Do we have the equipment? Do we have a robotics lab? Can we teach artificial intelligence? Can we teach coding? Do we have that many kits? Do we have that many computers? Do we have so many educators and instructors? Now that's the environment I'm looking at. Now, when I'm talking about STEM education and its importance for us in the next 2 decades. So it is absolutely necessary to bridge this gap and integrate with the corporate world. I've read a little about EdPrime, the way it is going about, systematically automating the administrative requirements and maybe much more of a particular educational institution. That's very good. It's going to save you manpower and time. Now, similarly, if we have the equipment and the environment in place, then the students will greatly benefit. We say K-12 and STEM, so we have an environment where we can teach. We say K-12 and STEM, we have educators who can teach them. We say K-12 and STEM, we have students who are well oriented to use both the other verticals and learn. And therefore, we hope that in the next 2 decades, we will get ahead of our problem or our concern, and get up to speed with the way the job environment is changing.
That's in
Have
fact,
I answered?
yes, yes. What you have made, I mean, just to summarize, the fact that what began with collaboration and integration now is one of the means of, getting those islands to merge with the mainland so that there is better benefit, collateral benefit for everybody. On a more, personal front, you have served the nation for 34 years as an officer in the Indian Armed Forces. And what are I'm very curious to know, as an army wife, how did you make that transition? And what are some of the similarities and differences between working as a civilian and having worked as a man in uniform?
All right. So I'm actually from the Armored Corps. I'm from 6 Lancers. The Mechanized Infantry is a sister arm where they work on BMPs and we work on tanks. But I'm happy to see this lovely BMP on the screen. The similarity, when I went to the army, and possibly by providence or the way I was performing there, I have been sent by the army to do a lot of courses. I've done advanced security and cryptology. I've done advanced gunnery. I've been a professor in the Pune University, deputed by the MOD. I've been to Russia to do some scientific work with the officers of Ordnance Factory Board, Armament Research Development and Development Establishment, DRDO, DMRL, huge 9, I don't want to mention all of them, and a few army officers. I led that team to learn about external and internal ballistics. So when, besides doing what soldiers do, which we are known for, conducting operations against the enemies and all, when our turn came, we went to the valley and to the northeast and did enough. However, I would like to say that once you get into the army and get, I would say, into a military zone, it's less of gray and more of black and white. Either you do it or you don't do it. You follow orders, and there is no there. There's less ambiguity. But when you go inside with your uniform on, when you go to work in CI ops, when you interact with the civil government, the officers, the district authorities, and when you conduct operations, you see that you have to have tolerance to ambiguity. That's the biggest and the most difficult way to teach a military mind tolerance to ambiguity, because you're sitting in an ambush for 3 days. You're hungry. You got information which was very credible, and nothing happened. So that tolerance as an officer, when you see your men hungry, they're drenched in the rains for 2 days, there are leeches around, and you have to trudge back with all that muck. It's difficult, and tolerance to ambiguity is what has helped me move seamlessly into the civil field. Now, before I retired, since I've been teaching in our places of instruction in Ahmednagar and Pune and in Patiala, Dehradun, and I've been an instructor to international officers. So the spirit of learning was always there personally for me. And even before I retired, I went to IIM Indore to do a management course, which has been cut out for the defense officers who are retiring. And 3 months into the course, I realized that the CEOs of companies are maybe 10 years younger to me, and I wouldn't possibly fit into a corporate world where I'll have to, again, work the midnight oil, and I may not be optimal in my service or output to the society. So using IIM as a launch pad, and as a student there, I've done 4 international courses. I'm an advanced internationally certified career coach and counselor. I'm a corporate team accreditor where I can, assess corporate teams and find out through a set way of questioning people and taking down their answers as to what are the strengths and weaknesses. Then I'm a senior certified professional in human resources from both US and Canada. So I've equipped myself and I've got into the civil field. And the moment I hit LinkedIn, which my professors and I told me, people came from Bangalore. It's a German company, an edtech company again, who are trying to bridge the skill gap in schools. They've done it in Europe. They've come here. They took me in as an advisor after interviewing me for 3 rounds. And my movement from the army to the civil field has all been on the computer, except for having a dinner with this company I've joined. Everything else happened in this hybrid mode, which we are talking about, and which was our first question and answers which we interacted on. So this is the potential of this hybrid, mode of moving ahead. And the similarity of purpose I find is you need to, as an individual, like I as an individual, picked up that my purpose is now to give back. So I go to places of need, government schools, villages, and I just speak to young children. I take my tiffin along. I tell the principal, I tie up and go. I have a session with the children under a tree or in a classroom. I tell them, beta, this is what you guys have to do. You have to study like this. There are 70 types of BBAs which are offered in our country now. It is not only 2, 3. There are 23 types of MBAs you can do. You can do, if you are a sportsman like Virat Kohli, God bless you, play for India. But if you're not up to steam, you become an engineer and manage the back end of an IPL team. If you like management, do sports management, look after a stadium, look after their marketing, look after their business. If you are somebody who likes agriculture, become a ground curator or manage the stadiums for them. If you're into financial management, look after their ticket selling, their online transactions. If you're into hospitality, look at their hotels and how they're going to stay and how they're going to travel. So there's so much to do, and still he's associated with cricket so that his heart doesn't break. So this is how I keep talking to children. So my little journey of 34 years in the army and now this new journey are similar, that I'm still working on my purpose. I served well as a soldier. I've commanded my unit. Now I'm doing my bit and enjoying the journey. Thank you.
Solomon, such a pleasure and an absolute honor, sir. We would in fact like to present you with a citation in recognition of your exceptional contributions, which firstly include selfless service to the nation for 34 years, and secondly, commitment to uphold the ethos and values of an equitable educational environment with stress on progressive technology. EdPrime is honored to award you this citation. This is our absolute privilege to have you participate in the digital event, STEM-preneurs Skilling with Studying. EdPrime wishes you the very best in all your future endeavors, sir. Thank you so much for being with us today. Stay tuned for more valuable and enlightening conversations brought to you by EdPrime, your smart schools partner. Goodbye until next time. Thank you.